We all have our battles to fight, and regardless of whether these are large, small, professional, or personal, we want to win. The good news is that the ancient Chinese manuscript The Art of War still retains much of its relevance today. Although it was originally intended to be a guide for military expeditions, it can be applied to a variety of contexts in modern society, including corporate environments or even your own home. So, get ready to discover how to artfully fight and win your battles. Preparing for war. The art of war is quintessential to the state and often a matter of life and death. Therefore, the preparation for war is one of the most important steps to victory. To gain an advantage, you need to compare your own army to that of your enemy. To do so, take external factors into consideration, such as the weather, the terrain, and the distance to be covered. Compare the size of your armies and the military disciplines of each. If your strengths are evenly matched, a battle is advisable. If you are of inferior strength, you should refrain from starting a war. Those who calculate and prepare for war will be victorious, but if the circumstances change, so should your plans. Aside from being well prepared for battle, it is also important that you do not underestimate your status as the leader of an army. Leading an army comes with great responsibility, and Zhu describes such a leader as the arbiter of the people's fate, the man on whom it depends whether the nation shall be in peace or in peril. 2. 5 Maxims to ensure victory. 1. Choose your battles wisely, know which battles to fight and which ones to avoid. 2. Know how to handle superior and inferior enemies. 3. Ensure your soldiers are motivated by the same spirit. 4. Be prepared and take the enemy unprepared. If you know yourself as well as your enemy, victory will be yours. If you only know yourself, you will win as many battles as you will lose. Always try to avoid a fight, if possible. To fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting, says Zhu. 3. Managing your resources. When waging war, be mindful of your resources, both your provisions and your soldiers. Zhu says war is expensive, describing a daily expenditure of 1,000 ounces of silver and 700,000 affected families. So only engage in battle when you are sure of victory. Bring supplies from home but also forage on the enemy's land. Seek to capture your enemy's land or army intact rather than destroying it. The size of your army does not make a difference in terms of how to manage it. If you are in command of a large army, simply divide it up into smaller armies. Use signs and signals to communicate with your men. Treat your troops as if they were your own children. Don't, however, be overindulgent, as your soldiers need to respect your authority. Observe your troops as well as your enemies. No matter how weak your enemy's troops are, you cannot win if your own men are in no condition to fight. 4. Attacking and defending. Always fight an enemy on your own terms. Remember, know your enemy and know yourself. Seek to impose an advantage by knowing your enemy's weaknesses and attacking suddenly and where it is least expected. Always anticipate your enemy's plans and attack first. If your forces outnumber your enemy's 10 to 1, surround your enemy. If your army is twice the size of that of your enemy, divide your troops into 2. Observe your enemy, so you know when to attack. When there is much running about and the soldiers fall into rank, it means that the critical moment has come. When some are seen advancing and some retreating, it is a lure, Zhu says. A sure sign of attack are increased preparations on behalf of your enemy and quiet words spoken among your enemy's soldiers. On the contrary, when it seems that your enemy is preparing to attack, this is a sign that he will retreat. You can often tell the state of your enemy's soldiers from their behaviors. If they cannot keep on their feet and stand only with the help of their spears, this means they are hungry. If soldiers who are sent to get water start by drinking it first, it means that your enemy's army is thirsty. Make sure your defense is impenetrable, even where you least expect an attack. Your enemy will use any weak points to his advantage. If you do not wish to fight, bluff. Conceal your plans, even from your own troops, so as to be invincible. Be unpredictable. 5. Employing spies. Since war is expensive, it would be unfair to lead men into battle without having done everything in your power to know your enemy. Therefore, the use of spies is recommended. Spies should be employed to gather information about the enemy. Zhu identifies 5 classes of spies. 1. Local spies, bribe locals in the enemy's land. 2. Inward spies, bribed officials of the enemy. 3. Converted spies, spies of your enemy, turned over to your side. 4. Doomed spies, those giving false reports to the enemy since you have deceived them. You should always seek to have the most intimate relationship with your spies. Your success depends on their information. 6. Misleading your enemy. All warfare is based on deception, says Zhu, so never let your enemy know what your plans are. Your enemy should assume that your position is the exact opposite of what it actually is. Mislead him to think that you are unable to attack when in reality, you are. Make him believe that you are far away, when you are actually near, and that when you are near, you are actually far away. Play on your enemy's weaknesses. Irritate him if he is choleric, and if he is at ease, never cease in your attacks so he may not rest. Finally, pretend to be weak so that he will grow arrogant and careless. You can then attack him once he has relaxed his defenses. Always be one step ahead of your enemy. If you arrive on the battlefield first, your troops will be well rested and the enemy will be easier to defeat. Never engage an army when they are returning home. Their wish to be with their families will be so strong that they will fight you to the death. In general, avoid cornering an enemy so as not to instill despair. Desperate soldiers are fierce and invincible fighters. 7. Observing your surroundings. For successful warfare, you do not only need to know yourself and your enemy, it is also important to know the terrain you are fighting on. Always be alert. When making camp, ensure you have an adequate supply of water for your soldiers and grass for your animals, and that you have a command of the surrounding area. Never attack an enemy who is on higher ground than you. Always try to get into a position where you can safely observe your enemy and have the advantage in a fight. If you are traversing through dangerous territory, such as quagmires or thickets, always pass through those quickly. Observe the wildlife. If the animals seem disturbed, a flock of birds suddenly flies up, for example, this means your enemy has planned an ambush. You can tell the position of your enemy from his behavior. If he is close at hand, but quiet, his army is most likely situated in a strong position. If he tries to provoke a fight, this probably means that you are in the stronger position and he wants you to lose out on your advantage. If you can easily access his camp, this is most likely a trap. 8. 9 varieties of ground. There are 9 different kinds of terrain where you can meet the enemy. Here are the do's and don'ts for each. 1. Dispersive ground. Don't engage fighting in your own territory. Your soldiers are near home and likely to disperse into all directions of the wind. 2. Facile ground. Fighting a short distance into hostile territory, it is easy to retreat. Don't stop here. 3. Contentious ground, a terrain that gives great advantage to either one of the fighting sides. 4. Open ground, each side can move at liberty. Don't try to block your enemy's way. 5. Ground of intersecting highways, this is terrain where 3 states meet. Fight together with your allies. 6. Serious ground, terrain that lies deep in hostile territory. Assemble and wait for your enemy. 7. Difficult ground, terrain that is difficult to pass through, such as forests or marshes. Keep walking, don't stop here. 8. Hemmed-in ground, terrain that is reached through small gorges, which means that very few could defeat a large army. 8. Use stratagem. 9. Desperate ground, terrain on which the only way to save yourself from destruction is to fight. 9. Fight. Final notes. Know yourself, know your enemy, and know the terrain you're fighting on. Although more than 2,500 years old, many of Sun Tzu's observations on warfare still retain their relevance today. His 13 chapters on the art of war are a fount of wisdom, which can be applied to all areas of life. The art of war has been described as a philosophical work, as much as a work on military tactics.